When you hear the name Coppola in Hollywood, you think royalty, right? But what's so fascinating is that it belongs to two totally different kinds of rulers. One, a father who built these cinematic empires with, sound and fury. And the other, a daughter who explored the quiet, lonely rooms inside them. Today, we're diving into the Coppola dynasty. One name, two incredible legacies, and the story of how they're forever tangled together. And this quote from Sofia really gets to the heart of it all. She said, "My dad is such a central, big character in my life. And that right there is the key to understanding everything." See, this isn't just about two directors who happen to be related. It's about how an artist finds her voice when her father's voice is one of the most powerful in cinema history. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll set the stage with the dynasty itself. Then we'll get into the Titan's grand vision. That's Francis Ford Coppola's explosive career. After that, we'll see a daughter's quiet rebellion in Sofia's filmmaking. Then we'll uncover the really surprising theme that connects them both. And finally, we'll look at what it all means to have two amazing legacies under one single iconic name. Okay, so let's dive in. It all really comes down to this one big question. How do you find your own voice when your father's voice is one of the loudest in the history of film? That's the challenge, right? At the heart of the Coppola dynasty.
You gotta remember, before Sofia, there was Francis. And in the 1970s, he was one of the leaders of this new Hollywood movement. It was this rebellious time where directors, auteurs had all the creative control. These guys weren't just making movies, they were making huge, personal, visionary statements. And Francis, well, he was an absolute force of nature.
And when I say force of nature, I mean it. His vision wasn't just big, it was mythic. The story of Francis Ford Coppola's career is this epic of insane ambition, massive risks, and basically building a cinematic empire against all odds. So back in 1969, Coppola and his buddy, another up-and-coming filmmaker, maybe you've heard of him, George Lucas, started their own production company. The goal was super simple, but also really radical. They wanted to create a space where filmmakers with bold ideas could have total artistic freedom, way outside the rigid studio system. They had this amazing dream, right? This filmmaker's paradise, a whole community of rebels changing cinema. But their very first big swing, the first feature film to come out of this new venture, George Lucas's THX 138, was a commercial disaster. And the studio's reaction, it just perfectly shows the clash between the old guard and this new wave. You can just imagine the panic at Warner Bros. They called the film bizarre, inaccessible, and far too experimental. And they pulled their money almost immediately. And boom, just like that, Coppola's dream is hanging by a thread. He's suddenly on the hook for $300,000, which back then was an insane amount of money, and his whole independent studio idea was in serious trouble. So with his back against the wall, and with George Lucas kind of pushing him, he reluctantly takes this studio gig. This was not a passion project. It was a job to pay the bills, adapting some best-selling novel about the mafia. And not film, the one he took just to get out of debt was The Godfather. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's one of the greatest ironies in all of film history. One of the greatest movies ever made was born, not from some pure artistic vision, but from the ashes of a financial failure. And The Godfather didn't just save him. It completely unleashed him. The 70s became his decade. From The Godfather Part 2 to The Conversation and Apocalypse Now, his films were huge, operatic, and famously chaotic to even make. This was the era of what his daughter Sofia would later call the macho guys who would go out in the jungle and make movies. And if you want to understand just how intense he was, look no further than this legendary quote about shooting Apocalypse Now. The production was just a mess. Typhoons, heart attacks, the budget spiraling out of control. See, he didn't just make films, he lived them, he bled for them, and he totally blurred the line between art and reality. Okay, now, I want you to imagine growing up in the middle of all that chaos. Sofia Coppola lived it. And how did she respond? By carving out a cinematic space that was the complete opposite. Her career isn't just a career, it's this quiet, deliberate rebellion against the spectacle that she grew up in. It's such a stark contrast, right? On one hand, you have her description of her father's world of macho guys. And on the other, you have her own mission statement. She looked at that loud, masculine cinema of the 70s and decided to create the one thing she felt was missing: a space for femininity. So, what did she create? It's a style that's 100% her own. We're not talking about epic wars or giant crime families here. Her films are atmospheric, they're dreamlike, and they're all about the intimate internal lives of women. Where her dad's movies are about what's said and done, hers are all about the subtext, the tension in what's not said. And this feeling was really the spark for her first movie, The Virgin Suicides. She read the book, loved how girly it was, and she felt this need to protect it. She wanted to make a film that actually spoke to the experience of being a teenage girl in a way that she felt mainstream movies, especially from the 80s, just never did. So, okay, we've got the loud, epic father and the quiet, atmospheric daughter. They seem like total opposites, right? Well, this is where things get really interesting. Because at the core of their very different work, they are both completely obsessed with the exact same theme: the father figure. It's this shared obsession, but they're looking at it from opposite ends of a telescope. Francis explores the father as a patriarch, right? A source of immense public power. Sofia explores the father from the daughter's perspective as this private source of love and melancholy and misunderstanding. And this table just lays it all out so clearly. Let's take Francis's classic patriarch, Vito Corleone. The scale? It's huge. It's operatic. The relationship is all about power, loyalty, legacy, all inside a criminal empire. Now, let's flip over to Sofia's fathers, like Bill Murray in Lost in Translation or Stephen Dorff in Somewhere. The scale is so intimate. The relationship is all about melancholy, a search for connection, seen entirely through a daughter's inner world. So, what does this all add up to? Well, it leaves us with one of the most incredible dynasties in the history of film, two totally distinct, powerful legacies that are forever connected by just one name. So let's just wrap this up by putting their legacies side by side. You've got Francis, the maximalist, the risk-taker, whose films are grand, loud, built on power. Think of the sweeping scale of The Godfather. And then you have Sofia, the minimalist, the observant introvert who creates these quiet, atmospheric films built on subtext. Think of that unspoken loneliness in Lost in Translation. You know, maybe the simplest way to put it is this: Francis Ford Coppola built the empire on screen, and Sofia Coppola explored the quiet, lonely rooms inside of it, showing us what it felt like to be in there, looking out the window, and just wondering what it all means. And so the whole story of the Coppolas, it's all about influence and reaction, legacy, and just being yourself. And it leaves us with this one big question to chew on. When your father is a legend, is artistic rebellion the only true way